Museum highlights Antikithyra mechanism. Similar devices in ancient literature. Cicero's De Republica, a 1st century BC philosophical dialogue, mentions two machines that some modern authors consider as some kind of planetarium or orrery, predicting the movements of the sun, the moon, and the 5 planets known at that time. They were both built by Archimedes and brought to Rome by the Roman general Marcus Claudius Marcellus after the death of Archimedes at the siege of Syracuse in 212 BC. Marcellus had great respect for Archimedes, and one of these machines was the only item he kept from the siege. The second was offered to the Temple of Virtus. The device was kept as a family heirloom, and Cicero has Phyllis, one of the participants in a conversation that Cicero imagines had taken place in a villa belonging to Scipio Aemilianus in the year 129 BC, saying that Caius Sulpicius Gallus, consul with Marcellus' nephew in 166 BC, and credited by Pliny the Elder as the first Roman to have written a book explaining solar and lunar eclipses, gave a learned explanation of it and demonstrated it working. At least one of Archimedes' machines, probably, considering Gallus' interests and the fact that that portion of the De Republica seems to be concerned with astronomical prodigia and in particular eclipses, quite similar to the Antikithyra mechanism, was still operated around 150 BC. Pappus of Alexandria stated that Archimedes had written a now lost manuscript on the construction of these devices entitled On Sphere Making. The surviving texts from the Library of Alexandria describe many of his creations, some even containing simple drawings. One such device is a sodometer, the exact model later used by the Romans to place their mile markers, described by Vitruvius, Heron of Alexandria, and in the time of Emperor Commodus. The drawings in the text appeared functional, but attempts to build them as pictured had failed. When the gears pictured, which had square teeth, were replaced with gears of the type in the Antikithyra mechanism, which were angled, the device was perfectly functional. Whether this is an example of a device created by Archimedes and described by texts lost in the burning of the Library of Alexandria, or if it is a device based on his discoveries, or if it has anything to do with him at all, is debatable. If Cicero's account is correct, then this technology existed as early as the 3rd century BC. Archimedes' device is also mentioned by later Roman era writers such as Lactantius and De Venerum Institutionum Libri 7, Claudian and Sphaerum Archimedes, and Proclus in commentary on the first book of Euclid's Elements of Geometry in the 4th and 5th centuries. Cicero also said that another such device was built, recently, by his friend Posidonius. Each one of the revolutions of which brings about the same movement in the sun and moon and 5 wandering stars, planets, as is brought about each day and night in the heavens. It is unlikely that any one of these machines was the Antikithyra mechanism found in the shipwreck, because both the devices fabricated by Archimedes and mentioned by Cicero were located in Rome at least 30 years later than the estimated date of the shipwreck, and the third one was almost certainly in the hands of Posidonius by that date. so we know of at least 4 such devices. The modern scientists who have reconstructed the Antikithyra mechanism also agree that it was too sophisticated to have been a unique device. It is probable that the Antikithyra mechanism was not unique, as shown by Cicero's references to such mechanisms. This adds support to the idea that there was an ancient Greek tradition of complex mechanical technology that was later, at least in part, transmitted to the Byzantine and Islamic worlds, where mechanical devices which were complex, albeit simpler than the Antikithyra mechanism, were built during the Middle Ages. Fragments of a geared calendar attached to a sundial, from the 5th or 6th century Byzantine Empire, have been found. The calendar may have been used to assist in telling time. In the Islamic world, Book of Ingenious Devices was commissioned by the Caliph of Baghdad in the early 9th century AD. This text described over 100 mechanical devices, some of which may date back to ancient Greek texts preserved in monasteries. A geared calendar similar to the Byzantine device was described by the scientist Al-Biruni around 1000, and a surviving 13th century astrolabe also contains a similar clockwork device. It is possible that this medieval technology may have been transmitted to Europe and contributed to the development of mechanical clocks there. Museum highlights: Antikithyra mechanism, investigations and reconstructions. The Antikithyra mechanism is one of the world's oldest known geared devices. It has puzzled and intrigued historians of science and technology since its discovery. A number of individuals and groups have been instrumental in advancing the knowledge and understanding of the mechanism, including pioneering German philologist Albert Rehm, Derek J.D. Sola Price, with Haralambos Karakalos and his wife Emily, Alan George Bromley, with Frank Percival, Michael Wright and Bernard Gardner, Michael Wright and the Antikithyra Mechanism Research Project.